Ready as that growth occurs. So currently on the books, we have 3 new elementary schools coming in. We're going to do a replacement school at Brookwood that not only gives us a new structure there, but expands the number of kids that we can house, as well as expanding at Glencoe and Evergreen, and then 2 new schools, one in North Plains and one in South Hillsboro. So a lot of construction taking place. And we feel really positive about the fact that we have had the land necessary to do this, and now it's a matter of putting the buildings in place. So excited about all that growth. And then the other thing we want to make sure is that we are providing the most modern education that we possibly can for our students. So for us, that means technology, that means creating learning environments that are appropriate for our students as we move into the future. So a lot of work being done, and you'll continue to see more of that in the next couple of years. So every time I'm in front of a group, I thank people for voting for the bond. If you didn't vote for it, you'll have another chance in 5 years. So you can just start getting ready for that now. So anyway, thank you all for supporting our schools. We truly appreciate it. We're coming out of a time of shrinking resources in education. If you look back over the last 10 or 11 years, in fact, it really corresponds perfectly with my first year as superintendent, and there really is no correlation there, it's just a timing thing. But the state of Oregon, there's been funding issues in the state of Oregon for the last 11 years. And what that means for us is if we would have had the same money that we had 11 years ago, and that money would have grown up and continued to cover our costs, we would have $70 million additional dollars in our system right now than we currently do. And that has meant that over the last 10, 11 years, we have had to get really good about focusing our resources and getting the biggest bang for the buck that we possibly can. And while that is painful, I'm proud to say that we have seen growth occur with our students during that time. If you were to look at our graduation rates just over the last 3 years, just in 2016, the grad rate was 78%. 2017, it was 84%. 2018, it's still embargoed information, but I have it as really good information that we're going to go up a point or two, but we can't share that yet. So you didn't hear 85% here. And the thing that we're excited about with that graduation rate is not only are we helping more students prepare for a successful future, but we are also closing the achievement gap that you hear so much about across the nation, across the state, and of course that has been a thing in our district as well. And our students of color are closing that gap, and the resources that we're providing to make that possible is something that we're very, very proud of. The other thing that we feel great about is that one of the biggest indicators of success for students if they're going to graduate is if they're on track with credit-wise at the end of their 9th grade year. And that's another area that we've invested very heavily. The class of 2020, 88% of 9th graders were on track. Class of 2021, it was 89%. And the class of 2022, 93% are on track to graduate on time. And that's a huge indicator for us, and we really believe that that has everything to do with the investments that we've made, even as it has become necessary to make difficult choices when it comes to reductions. We continue to invest in trauma-informed care work, making sure that our students are cared for and so that learning is accessible to them. We continue to investigate in things like graduation coaches, options that allows one-time intervention for kids who aren't currently being successful. And of course, we've invested heavily in CTE and our career and college pathways work, which you're going to hear a lot about today. We noted that if kids are involved in that work, and if they have the appropriate supports in place, kids that are involved in CTE, they graduate at a rate of 10% higher than their typical peers. So really excited about that work, and that's something, of course, that we'll continue to invest in. The last thing that I want to tell you about, and then I will hand the microphone over to Travis, is you're probably very aware that the legislature this past session, they passed the Student Success Act. And the Student Success Act is a reinvestment in education like we haven't seen in a number of years. No, it's not going to make up the $70 million that we have lost over the last 10 years or so, but it's a step in the right direction, and it feels like it's momentum in the education world. Those dollars will mean, for the Hillsboro School District, that will mean approximately $16 million additional dollars coming to our system for the next school year. And we're looking to make the best use of those as possible. We're going to be investing in things like instructional time, and we're going to be investing, of course, in the health and safety of our kids. We're going to continue to do that. Class size has to be on the table because that's an issue that is necessary in Hillsboro. And then there's this whole area of well-rounded learning and making sure that kids are getting everything they need to prepare for a brighter future. So those are my updates I want to provide you, just kind of the state of the district in 5 minutes or less. And with that, I want to turn it over to Travis, who's going to be sharing the bulk of the information this morning.
Thank you. Thank you, Nick. So quick agenda today. I'm going to spin through some images, hoping to kind of bridge the conversation about career and technical education, career and college pathways, and then the Student Success Act, which I hope that you have the chance this morning to use your voice to influence how it is that SSA takes shape in Hillsboro. And then we'll hear from Oregon ACE, which is exciting, Paxton Patterson, and a little bit about middle school CPE, and then we'll facilitate some discussions at your tables. So, I come back to this image over and over. This is from the hallway outside of the kindergarten classes at Reedville Elementary School. And what excites me about this work so much is that we have so many little humans who are just waiting to get their potential out there and untapped. It sits in their little bodies, and if we create those pathways for them, then we'll help them become who they ought to be, and it'll be enriching for our whole community, both economically and socially and culturally. So when I see the little faces and what the students would like to be when they grow up, I'm always inspired, and it grounds me back to why we're doing this work in the first place. Riley wants to be a doctor, Keenan, Red Robin worker, Brisa, a teacher, Evan may have actually performed an open heart surgery on himself. That is pretty advanced, but if you have the right app, you might be able to do that. Noah, police officer, and Irais, veterinarian. So students have about 5 or 6 ideas in their heads when they're in kindergarten, and if we're good at our jobs, we'll be educating them about all the different pathways and all the diversity of industry and career opportunities, especially here in Hillsboro, where we're really lucky to have such diverse workforce. I also want to draw attention to the fact that in the 2035 plan for Hillsboro and the Hillsboro School District strategic plan really overlap in a number of ways, and expanding workforce, providing training, developing programs starting in pre-K to get kids on career pathways are things that are called out loud and clear in the city's plan for Hillsboro, as well as the Hillsboro School District's plan to know every kid by name, strength, and need, and help them on their trajectory toward being successful adults. So we're really happy about the partnerships, all of them that are represented in this room, but I'm particularly proud of the conversations we'll get a little deeper in at the steering committee this morning about how the city and the school district have partnered up in economic development. If you go to a park and you ask somebody, so what are the big industries in Hillsboro? Everyone can name the biggest icons here: Nike, Intel. You could even drive by Genentech and Acumed as you drive in the North Industrial area now. But we feel a big obligation to open that conversation to all the different careers that students can have. We know that advanced manufacturing and IT are huge in Hillsboro, here in the Silicon Forest, and in this job shed in general for the Tri-County area. But there's so much more that we need to help kids understand. Even if they want to pursue an engineering degree today, there are so many on-ramps to these advanced technology and manufacturing careers that we haven't explored with students traditionally beyond engineering degrees. So part of what we're trying to do is to overlap business and industry input into our educational system, work with the city of Hillsboro and the county in economic development, and then have education partners aligned. Not only the K-12 districts in our area, we talked to the other, Mike will bring together the superintendents in the area, and we'll have a conversation about what are the pathways we should invest in, and what are the soft skills or the professional skills that we should invest in so that all students are ready to access the jobs that are available, be equipped for those. So these are overlapping pots of work that we think can't work in isolation if we're going to have a thriving economy and a workforce into the future. We've been traveling together to look at different workforce development centers. These images are from a place in South Carolina that partners with Michelin and Firestone and robotics, and they build these manufacturing centers, education centers, that students can be sponsored in their education and then get jobs when they come out in a number of different layers, entry-level positions, working on machines, or they can pursue higher education while they're working and achieve those higher degrees and more complicated work. We've been working also with partners like OMEP, and they help local businesses develop career ladders. And a thing that I've been saying as an educator that has bothered me is I was told, go to college or something else, you'll figure it out. And so I was highly motivated to go to college because I didn't see many other pathways. What's happening right now in the industry is that folks are developing entry-level, let me see if I have a laser here. Where are most folks looking? So there's kind of an entry-level set of jobs and roles to play, and then you can vertically move up the ladder as you gain different types of training. If you're working at MetaFab or Genentech. And so what students can see is that at the beginning you could be making this type of money, and then as you go up the ladder you can make this type of money, and we can actually have that conversation with a mom or a dad and a kid and say, you know what, if your aspiration is to own a home and have a family, if that's your choice, here are some things you should think about. Here's what it would mean to go to PCC, here's what it would mean to go to PSU, here's what it would mean to go to Corvo and access their career ladder and the options that they have for continuing education. In the past, I felt uncertain about how to coach a student to go right into the fab and get that job. The more that I work with our industry partners, the more confident I become that there are career pathways that go straight from being a senior in high school, maybe even with an entry-level internship, and then swim up that stream toward different opportunities. So this is just one graphic that we use to talk about that with students. So with all that in mind and where we're headed in this area of education, this is a timeline for the Student Success Act, which Mike alluded to, bringing more resource into our system. And what I would really like to thank everybody for this morning is accessing our survey and different groups that are influential in leadership in this area, in this town, for how we do education. And I want you to know that in December, we'll be turning in a continuous improvement plan to the state that has goals like helping third graders read, upping ninth grade on track and graduation rates, and increasing the amount of direct mental health supports that kids get in our schools. But we need your voice to help us create the application for the student investment account, which will be the dollars that flow to us through the Student Success Act. And I want to provide a mechanism for you to do that. So get out your phones, because just in a second you'll be able to snap a photo of a link. And it is appropriate to use technology in today's session. This is briefly a process that we go through called improvement science, and it starts with needs assessment, looking at data. It starts with community engagement, and today we have 3,000 respondents to our survey, including open field boxes where you can type in what you think is important for students and what your priorities are for students. We also have 300 respondents in Spanish so far. Not all of our Spanish speakers are choosing to respond to the survey in Spanish, so we can't necessarily divide demographic data based on that, but we have the survey available in English, Spanish, and Vietnamese, and it has an introductory video for you to explain the context. We'll take all that information and then we'll come up with some root causes of what are the barriers for kids and how do we solve those, and then we'll come up with some actions and driver diagrams and create goals, and we'll invest in those goals through a student investment. I want to show you a snapshot. This is last week, 2,944 responses. A whole bunch of parents, 1,374 parents have responded to this survey. And reinforcing, well, by far, the most popular investment is in teachers. Reduction of class size is written into the law, and most folks will identify as a high priority, reducing class size by hiring more teachers. What I would say is we'll hire more teachers, and we need to look at the diverse opportunities and a well-rounded education that students get. So in other parts of the survey, you'll be able to advocate for more CTE or STEM. You'll be able to advocate for more arts and music. So I'd love for everybody to use your voice to indicate your priorities. This is STEM and CTE next to each other. So you can see that these are also high priorities for many community members in Hillsboro. I wonder what you think. There it is. So if you have time later this morning, please get in there. And again, there are open fields where you can express your ideas even beyond scoring 1 to 5 your priorities in different preset categories. So, it is also my honor to introduce Chris Barber. Chris is a parent of 3 students who've come through our system, has been a big advocate for dual language education. His kids went to a dual language elementary, middle school, and high school experience, and they are incredible. Chris is also a Southwest airline pilot, a naval aviator, Top Gun instructor. Chris is like what you call the real deal. And when I'm around him, I feel like I'm with a rock star. But then as I get to know him, he's like the most humble guy that you could meet, and has just been a huge advocate for increasing access to aerospace aviation and aviation technology or mechanic programs in Hillsboro with the natural resource of the airport and the aviation community, which as not an aviator, I didn't realize the network of folks that are out there. And so I'm really happy for Chris to be able to explain his work in advocacy, and I just want to publicly thank him for all that he has been doing for us to get this far. And I'm so excited about the programs that are happening next year, so thank you very much, Chris.
Thank you, man. I'll be honest, I hate when Travis introduces me. And I also, I've heard that people get nervous when they get up front. I've never really had those butterflies in the stomach, but Superintendent Scott, as soon as you brought up Cheese Whiz on top of cream corn hash, or cream corn and Ritz crackers, I actually got a nauseous stomach. So maybe it's being nervous. I'm not sure what it is. Thank you for the introduction. Really, we got to stop on you. I don't like that. Anyhow, my name is Chris Barber. I'm an Oregon State graduate. I went through a Navy ROTC there. I was lucky enough to have a 20-year career in the Navy and the Air Force. I got to fly about 12 years in the Navy, and then I got to fly with the Oregon Air National Guard out of Portland for the last 8 years. And during that time, I was also a Southwest airline captain, or I'm now a captain, but I was a Southwest airline pilot and recently a captain for Southwest Airlines. So that's kind of my career and how I kind of am, at least I guess, able to come up and talk to you. Can everybody hear me okay in the back? I kind of talk loud. The mic, I overpowered Rocus. Hey, how I got involved with CTE? Well, back when I was in the Air National Guard with flying F-15s there, they were looking for a military representative to be part of the Oregon Air Show. And to sit on the board. They invited me in there with Steve Calloway at the time, Mayor Calloway there, and I was able to join that board, and it's been a phenomenal opportunity. A way to give back to the community and to really make some differences, and I see lives right there. In that process, in 2017, we spun off a foundation. The foundation intent on that is the Oregon Air Show Charitable Foundation, pictured here at the bottom right here. The goal of that was to create a sustainable philanthropic give back to the community right now. We're specifically targeting emphasis on aviation. Each year with the Air Show, we'd have ebbs and flows as far as how much money we have. The idea was to build an endowment that would basically allow us to give more a continuous give back to communities, where we're going from there. As we start to set that up in later 2018 and figure out what was going on, Boeing came out with some analysis of what the future of aviation is looking like. And it's very stark. They are stark in a sense to capitalize what we're looking at right here. But the report came out basically that they are looking at worldwide by 2037, 650,000 pilots and a mechanic shortage as well in that spot. Based on that idea and where we're going from there, we recognize that this is an area that we can look to growth from. And so we basically came into the Hillsboro School District and the Portland Community College as the foundation said, hey, we got an idea, let's see what can happen here. In that process right now, we obviously, the Oregon Air Show Charitable Foundation started talking with Portland Community College and the Hillsboro School District, and again, Hillsboro School Foundation, as well as all these other players up here to basically create what we're going to talk about today is the Oregon Aerospace Careers for Everyone, or the OACE program right now. This is a really exciting thing that it's coming about. We'll cover that right here. The purpose of this right now is to overcome Boeing's 2037 predictions of a 250,000 pilot and mechanic shortage, while thrusting the state of Oregon into the forefront of aerospace development. 250,000 pilots and 250,000 mechanics, and that's just in the United States. We take that globally, it actually takes that up to 650,000 on each side right there as well. Now the mission of this spot is to develop and organize it, or utilize the Oregon public school system, aerospace education to foster confident, fearless, tenacious community leaders while providing a financially obtainable aerospace career for everyone. So it's really important for us to see on this one now. We recognize that aviation is a skill set, either whether you're working out in a bunch of different areas right here, but this skill set is transferable to so many other areas. I can specifically attend to this. My son, as 14, he's gone out to that glider club, and he actually soloed a plane by himself before he started high school right now. I can tell you, as somebody that's done that, basically he has the confidence that many people don't have right at that spot because of that one experience. Aviation provides that for kids right here as well. Now also, as we talk about this, everyone on here is an important point. We want this to be accessible to everyone, and why that's important, in order to make this shortfall, we have to reach out to those diverse communities and the underserved as well. When you look at the demographics of the United States pilots right now, only 5% of airline pilots basically are either Hispanic, Latino, or Latinx right now. Only 4.1% are women. Okay? You look at this, 2.7 are Black or African American, and 2.5% are Asian. Those are small numbers. And we know specifically in our community right here, we have ability to touch these areas and hopefully bring those up right now and create a high-wage, high-demand tech career field here. Now our focus goal in order to do this is create an aviation-based educational program that will provide competent, adventurous leaders for any field. As I mentioned to you, it doesn't matter if you go into aviation, but I do know that the skill sets that somebody grabs in this industry, we're looking at this aspect because of the fun excitement about it, is going to bring confidence for anything they end up doing here. So it's a fun, tangible way for people to go out and learn something here. We'd also like to provide a path for members of our diverse community towards careers through career technical education. We'll talk about that a little bit more later here, and inspire you to choose aviation career field paths to provide an aviation workforce for the future. Obviously, as an airline pilot, it's important for me to have other people come in. For everybody that's ever traveled anywhere in a plane, it's important for you to have pilots up front for obvious reasons, right? Okay. Now, how did this come about right now? Well, first off, I want to say that we had an idea, but the reality is it's basically the Hillsboro School District, Superintendent Scott, Travis, Brooke, and Kelly, Aaron, those are the ones that originally took this idea and ran it forth. My time in the military, I was always up against a fact of I come up with a bright idea and the answer was no. And you continue to work and try to battle until you got a yes answer off that spot. When I worked with your staff, Superintendent Scott, I was shocked. The hunger and excitement that you guys have developed, the way that you guys have actually set out plowed this field so that you basically bring the water in and plant the seeds, it's amazing. So you have a staff that is unbelievable right here. I would say a round of applause to you guys. So thank you very much. Working with them over the last year, so basically starting this about 2019, we started going out and doing a lot of research. There wasn't a lot of places out there that have any type of programs like this. But one that we found through our air show system is Sun and Fun Aviation. Sun and Fun, if you don't know it, you may have heard of Oshkosh as a air show. Sun and Fun is in Florida, and they are they are the second largest air show. They have, because of that air show, developed a aviation school that is out there. That school, we had the opportunity to go down to visit, to learn that, and then begin to start to mirror what they've developed out there. One of the really exciting things they have their own separate campus, and on that campus they have actually a functioning 727 aircraft that kids go up, they start the aircraft up, they power up the engines, it actually provides the power for the plane, and the kids sit inside this aircraft, and that's where they have their classes at, okay? But one thing that they did change on it is the gear is actually fixed, everything else works. They decided they wanted to keep them on the ground and not have to go to flight. So where are we at with this today? Well, the Hillsboro School District, this will be the 34th CTE program that they have basically developed here. Starting in the school year 1920, we've already been able to develop here aviation middle school immersion programs at both Pointer Middle School as well as South Meadows Middle School. In the spring of 2020, we're going to start an after-school program right now with these CTE classes for allow kids to be able to take that to learn more about aviation. And then in the summer of 2020, we're going to start some OAS camps right now, where kids can actually learn about aviation and prepare them as they go into the high school year, starting in the fall of 2020, where they're going to offer the first CT high school dual credit class here in our Hillsboro School District. So it's super exciting. But where's that class going to be? Well, I know no brief here is ever complete without talking about the phenomenal transportation system that's been able to be developed here in the school system, okay? And why that's important, Travis, I want you to bring up, I know we plug this wherever we can. As we know, we have the ability here to basically transfer people throughout the system. One of the critical things on that is those kids will actually be able to start at different schools and have access to this aviation program that's going to be at the airport by the system that the school district has set up here. So those kids will be bused to the fairgrounds, which you know is right about here, and across the street, they'll be able to be driven on over to across the street right now. They'll have their education class. One of the exciting things here has happened, if you remember the old radio station there at the airport, well, the Port of Portland is working with us right now to redevelop that, and this is going to be the space for the new classroom right here. We're working with BLRB and a bunch of other construction firms in order to revamp that, and that will be the start of that classroom. One of the main things we also learned from Sun and Funds down there is the fact of strong articulation. The thing that they had to solve was that problem. We were very fortunate and blessed that Portland Community College already has a strong aviation program there. Because of that fact, we've worked with them and with the Hillsboro School District in order to create a pathway here. Obviously, I know you can't read that from here. I have some displays over here. I can talk this a little bit later. But this is a career path that allows kids to get dual articulation, and if kids will carry through this program starting with their freshman year, they'll be allowed to make a choice when they get up to PCC whether they want to become a mechanic or they want to become a pilot right there. Additionally with that, because of the dual articulation, basically, if you assume everybody here knows what it is, if it's not, it's credits they're going to get, both college credits while you're taking high school classes. It'll knock off about a third of that year, that training. And that's critically important as we start to talk about for everyone, to ensure that everyone has access to that. One of the other things that we saw, if I go back in here, there's a couple of these blue boxes I'll talk about later here, and these are ways for us to help this program. They're outside of the school day, but they're helped to augment what we have going on in the school. One of the main things that we saw when we were down there at Sun and Fun Aviation is the after-school program, which was its own separate 501c. What's exciting about you have two teachers that have been up at Portland Community College, been teaching there for a while, Larry and Marshall. They're not here today, but they're phenomenal people that have been part of this partnership. They were shocked. At the end of this class day, the bell rang, kids came across the street, they walked in, they started checking out tools, and they started working on planes. They started mowing the lawns. They all worked together here in order to build airplanes, fly airplanes, and do them. They actually, in Oshkosh, they had 7 planes with nobody over the age of 18. Flew these planes basically it was 1,400 miles to Oshkosh by themselves to show up here to see the aviation. All planes that they had worked on, built, and maintained. To include, they had a plane that actually broke while I was there. They weren't allowed to have someone else work on it. So these kids borrowed tools, and as they're in the middle of Oshkosh, you can see a crowd started growing around this thing. Because in over 2.5 hours, they put the motor down, they took it apart, rebuilt it, put it back together. We're talking kids that are 18 years old, okay? It's an amazing thing. What's even more exciting is I have some representatives here today that actually have developed something. A lot of you guys have talked. Chris, Evan, and Bruce, right? Yeah. Can you guys stand up for a second and talk about what you guys have just developed here? Just about 30 seconds or so.
Good morning, everyone. With the help of the OAS program and Oregon Air Show, we were able to create a dream of Larry Altree, creating a flying club. We're just got our 501c3, and as of last week, we flew our first aircraft back to Hillsboro.
So we just got our first aircraft. It's a not-profit organization. Initially started as a flying club for PCC students. A big challenge that we run into, especially with aviation science, is you work hard and sometimes you can develop a lack of motivation because training programs like this are very tedious and take a long time. So by starting this club, we really wanted to try and inject some more fun into the process of becoming a professional pilot and keep people in touch with why they wanted to become pilots in the first place. So with partnerships with the OAS program, we give these high school, these middle schoolers, as they're learning in the classroom, getting this college credit, it kind of gives them an opportunity to come see what we have going on, go up in an airplane, work on an airplane, and it makes the classroom learning a lot more real, and it makes it so much more fun, I think.
Good morning, I'm Bruce. I'm the aviation president of it. One of our plans is not only to fly ourselves and put other members of our club in it, but we want to put, there's usually always a back seat that's empty. So we want to put minority groups, students of risk in there to inspire them, see where they can go, and then supply planes to our members, and hopefully they come and fly with us as a club.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. It's exciting to see that this one small idea we had has already come into an idea right now where you guys are reaching back down, hopefully changing the lives of kids that are in our community right now and through this OA's program. So the future of this, well, basically where we're at right now, we're looking to hire a teacher. We have someone that is working with PCC in order to develop our curriculum here. In order to, we are going to get approval from the Oregon Department of Education through a program, a study right now, and we'll look to start our first class here next year. We're building that partnership with Horizon and Alaska Airlines right now, in communication with them in order to create a career pathway. And then we'll work with our Latino or Latinx community right now in order to educate them on this program and hopefully to bring those numbers up, that 5% in that entire community here. Our 2 to 5 year plan here is to develop a student-led after-school program, which these guys have already taken off the ground, a little bit ahead of my timeline, which is awesome. Partnership with the Oregon Air Show and the Hillsboro students to develop a more STEM-based air show. Our intent here for the future is kind of to change our intent for the future is to change our program of what you guys have seen for this air show. We're talking with Christy a little bit right now in order to hopefully see where we take this. The idea with it now is to make this more in line with the school year and more in line with education, and hopefully change the flavor of that air show so that we can make it a little bit more excitement and a little bit more real and tangible with STEM-based educational learning in a show here. 5-year, 10-year plan here is working with the Oregon Department of Education here to replicate this program throughout the state. The idea that we've had is about a couple weeks ago, we had a meeting with them and with a bunch of other schools that have had small programs there, and aligning all of our stuff so that we can kind of replicate the idea that you guys have been able to start to build here. And they continue working with the Oregon Department of Education track aviation industry. They were at that meeting as well, super excited about what you guys have developed here, because they realize that you are starting to build that next cadre of workforce. As we build that, industry is going to see that, and that's going to be their job in order to start bringing that industry in here and expand on the industry they already have in our state for local, high-wage, high-tech jobs here. And then our goal here as a foundation is hopefully to build, work the partnership of the Bartley Community College, or excuse me, with the Port of Portland here, an OMSI-type STEM learning center that's going to be out here at the airport. The long-term vision may not happen right now, but our goal is to do that because we can see that's a way to bring community and regionally people to this area in order to learn more about education. Well, I think the most important thing is where we can go together. And that's kind of why we did this talk. I think it's why Brooke had asked that we come talk to you guys about what we're doing here. Aviation industry touches every industry in one way or another, okay? Whether that's going to be environmentally, whether it's going to be working with marketing, whether it's going to be business plans, whether it's going to be, as my daughter talks about, Zach Hosen, he was a designer, that he actually designed the outfits for Delta flight attendants right there. So one way or another, this all connects in aviation right now. So if you're someone that's excited about design, let's say, or marketing or business, we can tie that in, and I see it's a way that we can develop this for other ideas here. So the thing I want to ask you is, how do you get involved? What is your spot? What is your connection, or who do you know that makes that happen? It could be something in the sense that you know someone that's at Les Schwab. Where Les Schwab at, we have this club. If we can get the club then to teach them how to, if they know how to rivet, if they know how to use these tools, we can get them signed off on a checklist. And Les Schwab says, hey, if you can prove that you know how to do these things, we'll get you an interview. It may not be a job, but we'll get you a preferential interview because you're learning a skill set that we don't have to train you. And we can find those industries all throughout our community right now. So afterwards, I'll be around here to talk. I know I'm probably going too long. Hopefully not too long here, but my email's up here. Feel free to email me, have any questions, and that's all I have right now. So real quick, I know we don't have a ton of time right now. Patrick, I know Patrick Rockenbaugh, working at Hillsboro School, Pointer Middle School. I think you're up to talk about that stuff. So.
I'm a middle school teacher at Pointer. And I'm kind of linked in here, not only knowing Chris, I've known him for a little while, he actually happens to be my brother-in-law, so I'm gonna tie it there, which makes it a little easier. But with an aviation part to my elective there at Poynter, I started that a couple years ago with a little help from him, and have kind of gotten rolled into this, the CTO ACE, and I'm kind of starting with that fun side of things. So this year we're going to be starting a drone club and get kids out there flying. I've already started up through help from HSF and everyone who's donated money. I really appreciate that. We are starting that. We're putting all the drones together. We're going to go first person viewing, so they're right in the cockpit just like they're flying it. We're going to start that direction and move and see where that goes from there. So that's going to be a ton of fun. Other than that, we're supposed to be talking about the Pax and Patterson. At my school, we didn't really go through those units. My principal and I kind of looked at it. He went to the big meeting down south to check them out. And he said, or he thought we were doing a lot of those things already. So we just kind of moved, not in that direction, but kind of similar by revamping our shop and the tools and stuff we have in there. So that's been a lot of fun doing that and getting that all together. Right now, I think Scott, I'm going to introduce you, and if you want to talk about what you guys have at your middle school.
Yeah, sure. I'm Scott Harrington, middle school teacher at Evergreen, the shop teacher there. So this is my 19th year in education. My actually undergraduate degree is in construction management. So when we start talking about career tech and career related things, there's a special place in my heart to that. And so, it's neat to see kind of this discussion about kind of experiences at a middle school and getting kids ready to be thinking about careers. It's not just necessarily all about college. And I think that is a reality that we have a conversation on a daily basis with our kids. So when this is my actually 4th year teaching shop at Evergreen, it's hard to find shop teachers. They close up more shop programs than anything. A lot of people that have that knowledge or interest are often working out in industry. And so for me to come in and work in the program and continue it and continue to build it, I've been very, very excited about that. We're very lucky at Glencoe. We have a great technical continuation, a lot of shop technical programs at Glencoe. And so at Evergreen to continue that. So as last, I guess so when I started teaching shop, it was very traditional. I teach a traditional shop class with, we do projects with wood, we would learn about safety and power tools, and we also use some different materials, do some plastics. And I also teach kind of an engineering shop class, where we do a little bit more kind of technical work, we do some design work, we design CO2 cars, balsa wood bridges. And so then last year, my admin came to me and said, hey, we're kind of interested in supplementing and, what happens when you leave or when we cannot find another shop teacher. And so the Paxton units are kind of what they were thinking about. And so we had some dialogue. Stefan's here. He's the representative from Paxton. So we kind of had some dialogue. Some people made some visits there. These units are throughout many middle schools down in Salem and in Vancouver. And so I went down to visit, and it was amazing to see the units and the kids' engagement. And these the units, they're typically kind of scoped for about 2.5 weeks. Then they rotate through. And so you have a unit with 2 students working per unit. And I mean, there are, over 50 different units that are available. And so when we kind of picked our units, I wanted to find kind of a diverse collection of units. And it wasn't just, what I knew about. Some of the units that we brought online were things that I did not know about. As a shop teacher, I'm responsible for creating all my curriculum. Patrick can, say, when I taught math, we opened a math, we had, a scope and sequence in the textbook. In shop, there's no such thing. So, we're good at creating content, but I could not create content and a lot of information, a lot of materials that I did not know about. And so I think this is one of my favorite props when this is sitting on the counter and the kids are like, Mr. Harrington, you have a weird leg sitting on your counter. And so this is actually part of a nursing unit that we do. And the kids are actually suturing. They learn how to suture. There is fake blood that they are doing some transfusion work. And so some of the other units that I have is I was looking for high interest ones, again, not ones that I knew about or that I was comfortable with. We have a culinary one of the most popular rated units. And so we are going to be doing some cooking in my class in the shop, and that's kind of mind-boggling. But then we have a fashion design that the students are looking at design and fashion, doing some different things. We brought a couple other modules. There's a home maintenance. The kids are learning about, wiring outlets and, AC and DC current. They're working on learning about some plumbing, some introductory plumbing pieces. There's electronics, and so they're learning all about electronics, and again, resistors and capacity and things of that nature. So again, it was a great opportunity for me to bring my kids a lot of really diverse experiences. As I said, I have a biomedical unit, and kids are actually making casts. I know nothing about making casts, and so to be able to have this unit and this content was very exciting. Kids have been very, very excited. We have an engines. The kids are working on power, taking apart an engine, figuring out how engines work. We do some fiber optics, and so there's a lot of really, really interesting units for kids. They're really excited, and we're actually, my disclaimers, we're just literally getting ready to start our first rotation through the units. The one thing when we were talking about kind of integrating this, it wasn't a matter of like, oh, hey, I'm just going to stop teaching all my curriculum that I have. I've been, working to integrate it into the current curriculum that I do. And so, as I said, the kids are really excited. It'll be very interesting to see, kind of as they get some really diverse experiences. Some of the other ones, I have a veterinary one, we have a robotics one, and so there's numerous, content that they'll rotate through. As I said, it's about a 2-week, and then we'll rotate. And so then they'll get another experience for another 2 weeks. We'll also continue to do the traditional shop. So half my students will be doing the traditional shop, then half will be rotating through the units. So what is also nice about this course is that next year, if they take it again, then we can, they won't be doing the same thing because they won't get through all units. And so they'll be able to, again, rotate through different units and have, some really diverse experiences. And then really get them kind of having those conversations. Each part of the unit, the end is kind of this analysis of careers that are associated with that. They look at, what is the education, what are the jobs, what is the training, what are the salaries. And so I think that puts it into a very real context for them. That yes, they get to play with blood in a leg and and suturing, but then they really get to have some context about what does it take to be a nursing or a nursing assistant, and what does that look like to be career related. So that's kind of what we're doing at Evergreen. Real excited about it. We've had a lot of really great support, and really looking forward to my kids kind of getting those experiences. And then when they move on to our comprehensive high schools that I'm always excited about, that offer so many diverse things, they maybe have had some experiences that allow them to say, hey, maybe that's not something that that I thought I wanted to be a nurse, but I can't stand blood, and so then they're able to put some context together. So I'll let Stefan, you probably want to say a couple words, but he's been a great support and a great resource for us as we've kind of transitioned into this too. So thanks.
Well, thank you. First, thank you guys for having me. I think that the one message I want to convey is so I live in the Edward time zone in Oregon. I live in Vail. There's a little tiny sliver about an hour from Boise, Idaho. CTE teacher for 10 years. Then I was a CTE regional coordinator, so I oversaw 6 counties and a community college. And as you guys sit here and have your table discussions, one of the things I would encourage you to think about is Oregon is one of only 7 states that does not invest into middle school until we pass Measure 98. So when you think about that, think about Hill High, football. You want to win a state title. But your kid's never seen a football or touched a football until they were in 9th grade. Absolutely crazy expectations. What your CTE and STEM teachers are up against, you have 4 years to take a student and get them ready to be prepared for life. And so as you guys look at how you want to invest state tax, state dollars, investments moving forward, the biggest thing you can think about is starting those high quality programs at a younger age. State of Washington, just north of us, not very far, they just passed legislation and they've implemented the high school and beyond plan. They require 30 hours of career exploration for 6th graders, 60 hours for 7th graders, and 90 hours for 8th graders. And that, if your student in the state of Washington in 2020 cannot show documentation of those hours required, you will not get FTE reimbursement for their 8th grade year. So Oregon is behind the curve in helping build these high wage, high demand CTE pathways, STEM pathways, just pathways to make students successful. So as you guys think about adding teachers and developing well-rounded curriculum and these experiences for all these amazing students, which Hillsboro has done a great job. There's only about 11 districts in the state that have made multi-million-dollar investments into middle schools. And you're the only one in the Portland metro area that's doing that with equity, fidelity, and responsibility. And so as you guys think and have these discussions, think about the middle school piece, the high school piece, and then what doors does it unlock for these students? You know, there are tomorrow. And so those would be some things that I recommend. You know, when I sit here and listen to your aviation program that you guys are trying to build, the hardest thing to do is to build a high wage, high demand program of study. But the most encouraging thing was it starting at the middle school. And so as a CTE coordinator, being in charge of 136 programs in 32 districts, the hardest part was trying to get people to buy into building the prereqs to get into that program, right? Because those high school CTE teachers, they want their students to be successful. They want to provide those opportunities. But if you spend your entire first year with your students not knowing if they're going to like it, why they're there, or the reason that they're there, you've lost 1/4, 25% of your opportunity to make a difference in that kid's life. Because you don't even know if they're engaged or if they want to be there. And so if you start that out at a lower level, you can turn out better outcomes as they get older. And so those are some of the things that I would encourage you guys to think about in your table discussions. And, you know, thanks for having me, and it's so encouraging. You know, Paxton Patterson is a company that started a really long time ago in the 1800s. They're ginormous nationwide, but Paxton Patterson isn't the answer to everything. And so to see that taking place in your classroom is absolutely amazing. To see it in Scott's classroom, absolutely amazing. I see about 300 schools a year. And so I get an opportunity to see what I think is showcases and what are epic misses. And so here at Hillsboro, you guys are doing some really, really cool things, but yet you have the ability, means, and financial opportunity to do something really impressive that will impact tons of students. So it's pretty cool to watch it all take place. So thanks for having me.
Well, Stefan, is that your name?
Yeah.
I think Stefan actually did a really great job of stitching a theme through the end of this summit. Unfortunately, you know, we knew going in that our time was short, and unfortunately we have kind of come to an end. So we can't really launch into our table discussion portion, and I'm sorry for that. Please know that there are note cards on the table. If you have a question, comment, if you want to be involved and provide your email address and say, I'm interested in this or that, we would love to have that. We would also love to have your feedback on the sheets, whether you leave that today or scan it and email it to us. But I just want to kind of state once again, I know that you got a lot of information really quickly, and I hope what you come away from this event with is a greater understanding of just how committed we are to this work and to ensuring that our students, you know, as they are getting all of their other content, you know, their language arts and their math and their science, there are also these opportunities for them to really explore their interests and have experiences that truly prepare them for their next step after high school. And that is starting down at the middle school level. In addition to the programs that you heard about today, every middle school will have the opportunity of after-school exploration programs that align with their feeder high school, which is really exciting. You heard about aviation, which is starting up next year, which aviation avionics, which I think is truly amazing and exciting. That will be our 34th discrete program, but I believe that across our high schools, we have about 64 programs once you take into account all the offerings at our different high schools, and that is just amazing. There are so many opportunities for our students, so I hope that you feel inspired and excited about what our students have in store for them. In addition to the things you heard about today, our beautiful snacks and coffee were provided by the Ground Up Coffee Shop, which is a partnership with First Tech Credit Union across the street here, which is a completely student-run coffee shop. It is, oh yeah, and there are some, with your raffle tickets, you yourself could win a $5 gift certificate to go over and check it out. It's very cool. And it's a great opportunity for our students to learn real-world skills and to earn class credit while school's in session, and earn money when school's not in session during school breaks and things like that. So again, thank you so much for being here. We are about to be overtaken by people who are coming in for the next meeting, but feel free to sit and chat or take a look at the Paxton Patterson materials. Let's do our 3 raffles super quick and then bring those other folks in.
So I always like to preview first the materials that you have in front of you, because I think what happens is that we get going and there's all this great information that we're going to share, and then we don't get to what your packet includes. So I'm going to go over that first, if you could look at your materials. And also, just thank you so much for coming this morning. It's always great. I feel like this is just an informative celebration. I always feel like our current college pathway work is to celebrate the great things that are going on and to share information, to hear feedback from you. And if this is your first time to steering committee, welcome. My name is Brooke Nova. I'm the coordinator of Career and College Pathways for the Hillsboro School District. This is going into our 6th year of what we have formalized as the Career and College Pathways Steering Committee work. So lots of great things have happened in those 6 years. We're going to go over some of that today. But first, so what's in front of you? You have a note-taking tool. You will be using that when we do breakout work. So feel free to just jot down some information as you hear us present today, things that resonate with you. You do have that in front of you. The agenda, of course, our metrics, also high wage, high demand information. I know that Travis and Dan will be going over that later. You have that in front of you. You also have some information about one-pagers, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that later on, but we gave you some samples in your packet as well of one-page information about our career college pathway work. And I think that's it. So as you go through the morning, please reference that information and feel free to jot down notes. So it's my pleasure to introduce Mike Scott, our superintendent of Hillsboro School District. He's going to go over some metrics and some information about our work. And then, if you want to start, is it right here?
Yeah.
He's going to start right here. And then we will talk a little bit about workforce investment with Travis and Dan after that. So once again, thank you guys so much again for coming, and Superintendent Scott.
Thank you.
All right, good morning, everybody, and welcome. It's great to see everybody. Hey, before we get started, I wanted to introduce our board members who are here. I see Mark Watson in the crowd. That's Erica Lopez. And I think where?
Danny.
Oh, sorry, Danny, our student rep. We're in the 2nd year of having student reps to the board, and that has really added an element to our discussions, and they've just been a great part of the equation. So thank you for being here as well. I also wanted to introduce Erin Carlson, who she is the big shot in charge of the Hillsboro Schools Foundation. She's the executive director, and I just want to put in a plug. They do a great auction every year. It's a huge fundraiser, and I know she would appreciate it if you would ask her about it. That comes up in February. She's happy to give you all kinds of information on that. So let's dive into our conversation today. Thank you all for being here. Why do we do this work? So when you look at the theory of action that you see up here on the screen, we are crazy enough to believe that we can graduate 100% of our students. And we really believe that this work is instrumental in reaching that goal. There are times in educational circles where you hear districts talk about, yeah, is it really realistic to say 100%? And we absolutely believe it's realistic to believe that we can graduate 100% of our kids. And we know that the work that is done in this arena is a huge part of that. We believe that if we can create the right circumstances for our students, if we can have the right staff members in front of them, if we can have the right belief systems around it, then we can definitely reach that goal. And we also believe that doing this work is a huge responsibility on our part. Not only is it a responsibility to make sure that students are prepared for a brighter future that they might not otherwise envision for themselves, but we also have a responsibility to our community as well. Whether it be the business community who are counting on students to come out job ready, whether it be the greater Hillsboro community who needs our students to be ready so financially we can thrive and be a strong community, or whether it just be the students themselves, just creating the best opportunities for them to be successful after they leave their time in K-12. We believe that as well. One of the things that we believe is that the work that we do in this arena needs to be driven by that whole concept of high wage and high demand jobs. That if we can find high wage, high demand jobs for our students, it is going to create opportunities for them that they otherwise would not have had. We also know that by exposing students to pathways that they wouldn't have known about, it opens up doors for them that they're going to need to be successful and to compete in the larger arena once they leave our system. Our values around this is that we want all of our students to have access to the opportunities that some of our students naturally get because of the resources that they have. And we don't want our students to have to be lucky to be in the right circumstances in order to get what they need. It used to be that our students had to be lucky to be exposed to the right circumstances to be successful. Their parents had to have the right education, their parents have to provide the right resources around them, and they've got to have that money to do that thing, they've got to be surrounded by the right people. And it used to be that that was true not only in their personal lives, but also true in the schools as well. It used to be that students had to be lucky enough to have the right teacher that had the right licensure. It used to be that you had to be lucky enough to be in the school that offered a certain program. And now, as you'll see, and as you've heard about over the past months, we are systematizing all of this work so that all of our students have those same opportunities that some of our students used to have. And that's hugely important for us. As we look at some of the numbers behind this, so there's two purposes for this slide. First of all, this is just to brag a little bit about our district, so that's one purpose. But there's also a greater purpose there as well. You'll see that these are last year's numbers, and the new grad rates will be coming out in the next couple months. But we were at 84% grad rate last year, and you'll see that the state average is 77%. And what's really significant about that is not only are we considerably above what the state average is, but the biggest predictor across the nation of grad rates is the socioeconomic status of the students that live in that district, so the demographics of the students. We have nearly 50% of our students that live in poverty. And if you were to compare our district with like districts who have those similar demographics, we outperform them in a really considerable way. So that's something we're really proud of, and we believe a lot of that has to do with the belief systems and the values that we have around students, as well as the programming that we put in place to make sure that happens. The other interesting thing here is that you can see the involvement in CTE, what that does to grad rates. So if our grad rate is 84% last year, it's going to be going up this next year, preview of coming attractions that we can't talk about yet. But the CTE rate is even higher, to the point where students that are very involved in CTE and they have a concentration and pathway that they're focused on, up to 10% percentage points higher grad rates. That is absolutely amazing. That's one of the reasons that the investment in this work is so absolutely important. So thank you for your involvement in that as well. And one of the reasons we think about for that is it allows students to see opportunities for themselves that they couldn't otherwise see. I told a story at the all-staff kickoff a couple of years back about African gazelles. They can, I'm kind of a gazelle expert, it's weird, but they can jump 10 feet. So they can jump over a basketball hoop if they chose to do that. Zoos, when they have them, they put up a 6-foot wall, but that wall has mesh in it, so they can't see the other side. Even though they can jump 10 feet, they will not try and jump because they can't see a pathway out. The CTE experience for our students is the pathway out. Right? If students can see where they're going, if they have the opportunity to project a brighter future for themselves and they can see the pathway to get there, you can see what it does for them. So that's the other reason that we invest so heavily in this work. And then I just wanted an opportunity to say thank you for your involvement with this. As we move forward, you're going to get a window clean today to help advertise your partnership with the Hillsboro School District, as well as to just express your support of the Career and College Pathways program that we have. But we truly believe that we cannot do this work on our own. 10 years ago, education, those of us in education, we really thought as a district we could provide everything our students needed to be successful, absolutely everything. We certainly don't believe that anymore. In fact, we totally believe that we could not do it without the support of everybody in this room, without our business partners, without the support of the city, without the support of the county. We really believe that that's the case. So I just want an opportunity to thank you for your partnership because the work that we do is incredibly important and provides opportunities for kids that they would not have otherwise had. So with that, I will welcome you and thank you and turn it over to Travis.
Thanks. The story about the gazelle and your expertise in gazelles is remarkable. It always works on me. My name is Travis. I serve as assistant superintendent in the school district, and it resonates with me because I'm a first-gen college student, and even though I had all the privileges of a white, male, able-bodied human in this society, I couldn't see what was going on past high school and was encouraged to go to college because that's the thing to do. Became an English major because I like to read books. It's a good way to make a decision. And that's opened a lot of opportunities for me, and I wouldn't take it back. But I think about my 14-year-old self, and what if I had grown up in Hillsboro and been able to see all these different pathways? Where would I be? Hopefully right here, but maybe, I don't know, outer space somewhere. The reason that I'm proud to live and work in Hillsboro is because we are small enough that we all know each other's names and we all hang out at the park together, but we're big enough that we have a huge, robust set of industries and opportunities for our young people. And having a couple of little young people in our system, I know that they and their classmates just have a ton of opportunities waiting for them. It's up to us as the adults to create those pathways so they can be accessed equitably and that all of our young people can live and thrive in Hillsboro. We're going to get pretty nerdy right now. It's my honor to present with Dan Diaz from the Economic Development Department and Community Development. I always get confused about Dan's title because he operates in so many different areas in our town. But we've become friends across Hillsboro School District and City of Hillsboro in exploring this question, how do we build these pathways for kids? Today we're going to focus really on like high-tech manufacturing, transportation and logistics for a reason, because that's such a focus of what happens here in the Silicon Forest. But if you're sitting there from, I see a lot of CTE leaders here. If you're from health sciences, there's the same story built in here. If you're from education, there's the same story. We're going to talk about talent gap and how unless we act boldly, we won't fill the jobs that are required to keep our economy thriving. And if we do act boldly, we will, and we'll have diverse humans unlocking their talent. So I'm going to kick it to Dan to kick us off about the big picture of what's going on here in Hillsboro economically.
Thank you, Travis. And so from about 3rd through 9th grade, I always wanted to be in the nerdy crowd, so this is a day of major achievement. I'm Dan Diaz, Economic and Community Development Director for the City of Hillsboro, and I first wanted to say thanks especially to Hillsboro School District, but to many others in the room for the partnerships that have, in some cases, been long in the making, others that have been realized a little bit more recently, especially in the arena of workforce development and what we're going to collaborate and talk about today. It also, for me, is in the city, the role that I play is really the bridge between our economic development efforts, which on their face are most business focused in terms of working with new and existing companies to identify those needs, solicit their investment into the community, and also retain them in the community, but at a much deeper level, and where community and economic development almost most clearly intersect and synergize is on the topic of workforce development, where we have the ability to take our residents, both current and future generations, and the possibilities to have those residents and members of our community be able to access and leverage and economically benefit from many of the jobs and business investments that we've been so successful to curate to today. So wanted to start with a little bit more of the intersection of those 3 critical pieces and the efforts of the partnership that are underway. The city obviously is at the table because we are a jurisdiction. We're an entity that looks out for the public interest on a variety of fronts, whether it be to how the community is developing and the infrastructure that's needed to do that over time, whether it's also with the amenities and the types of programmatic pieces to respond to the residents and members of our community as well. It also requires Hillsboro School District and a variety of educational partners to bring forward the types of training needed to both instill the awareness of career pathways and the skills for our residents but also to have those be receptive to and a value add to the companies that are in our community, which takes us to the third leg of that stool, which is at the bottom, which is the business and industry. And this is where major kudos and thanks to members of the economic development team at the City of Hillsboro and partners such as Hillsboro Chamber and many others. But to be that conduit in the role in which the city can more directly engage as of late, to bring the business voice in the statement of needs to the educators so that way we can build that synergy. And what that leads to is towards the inner circle here is really the understanding of what are the near-term demands. And as we have a very high concentration of innovative and rapidly evolving industries within our community, doing our best to project what does that look like 5 and 10 years out, even though those needs continue to refine and change over time as well. It also then gets back to having curriculum development and college and career pathway awareness programs to motivate and excite many of those students that Mike and Travis alluded to earlier to make it clear as to here's the possibilities that lie ahead, and then also to start to pair and align skill sets or interest areas of how to be that gazelle to then clear the wall and then hit greener pastures. That also looks a lot like this. So this is an area on our north end of Hillsboro. Many of these companies are recognizable to many of you, and this is a concentration of many of those high-wage, high-demand careers that were alluded to earlier, and that create so many opportunities in the form of job opportunities, wages, careers, and the like. And you see a wide array or range of company types up in this area. Many of them are medium and larger sized companies. It's also important to recognize that there's many small and growing to medium sized companies that are in our community as well over time that both create business opportunities as well as career pathways. But this is of important significance because this is an area where our community has long built an energy and a concentration of these type of career and economic opportunities that we continue to seek to nurture and evolve and grow over time. And with that, you have concentrations of different topical areas that are now aligning very closely and growing with the CTE types of programs, especially around areas like advanced manufacturing or biosciences and biotech that we'll talk more about here in a minute. But I also wanted to point out a couple of really what we feel are pretty impressive and important stats to recognize, and here's where some of the nerdier components start to come into play. But that 1 in 4 jobs across all of Hillsboro are in manufacturing. And you'll hear many economic development people and industry people and educators talk about manufacturing. And while if you read national publications or watch national media, there's a lot of talk about manufacturing is dwindling and declining. And in some industries, that's true. It is not true, however, for what we have in our backyard and the nature and the type of industries we have here. And so when we work with our education partners and with our industry partners, and we see that 1 in 4 jobs currently are in manufacturing across a variety of industries, that really starts to shed a very narrow light on the type of skill sets, the type of industries, and the type of job opportunities that lie out there. It also is important to talk about this stat right here, which is that 88% of those Hillsboro manufacturing jobs are in high tech. And this is an area that is seeing continuous and rapid growth. We can look right outside the windows here and see many of the cranes and many of the investments that are happening. That is not just dollars invested in our community, that is creating capacity for expansion of existing companies, and with that is bringing in new companies as well that bring with job opportunities and a desire for an innovative and skilled workforce. And so we continue to see on the horizon a growth in manufacturing sectors, whether it be the semiconductor and the high-tech sector, whether it be advanced manufacturers making a variety of goods and products such as baseball bats or mechanical equipment. And we also see the growth and emergence of our biosciences industry. So with that, I will conclude with this slide, which really is from the city's approach. These are many of the target industries that we see activity in both currently, and we also believe are strong industries that we are pursuing out into the future. In the upper left is our most mature and significant. That is the computer and electronics industry. Almost everybody, I believe, knows about Intel, but there's many others in our community as well that sometimes don't get the same type of recognition. You have Qorvo Semiconductor just adjacent to us here on the other side of the library. You have Gyre Semiconductor just across the street here. And then you have tens of companies with thousands of employees that come in to support those type of manufacturers. So that's where you have well over 21,000 jobs across about 55 firms. That number continues to increase lately with activity, but that is a significant focus, and you'll hear about alignment with many of the programs to that industry and to those jobs. A more rapidly growing, albeit a smaller number right now, is software and information technology. And so you can look out many of the windows of this facility and see Synopsys, for example, that is just on the other side of a Renko station, or Salesforce.com that has an office building there. There are elements of First Tech across the street that have the software component going into them. Leica, which is not too far from here as well, that continues to grow, in part because of the presence of some of the electronics and computers industry, but also in part because of the type of workforce that we are starting to turn out and have presence in the region. That is also tied back into the 5 trans-Pacific cables that connect Hillsboro, our community, with all points around the globe, especially across the Pacific, that allows some of that technical latency and software development to be adding value. In the lower left is another growing and somewhat mature area. This is the advanced manufacturing that I alluded to earlier. It's companies like Metafab, and Tony's here representing Metafab. Columbia Industries that makes a variety of rigs, so more tangible and significant, maybe lower tech, but still arguably important. Facilities and components, and Davis Tool, who makes tools. And so there's many, many more of those in our communities as well that maybe have shared skill sets across the industries, but in some cases have their own tailored niches as well that we've identified. And lastly, one that has additional excitement activity happening not too far from here is the growth and continued maturation of our biosciences sector. And this is where we have great partners such as Genentech that are partnering with the school district and with Portland Community College to continue to grow the life sciences and the biosciences as a high-tech, but a different type of high-tech workforce that is needed throughout our community. And with that, I'll hand it back over to Travis.
Thank you. Thanks, Dan. I think it's super important for us to listen to our economic, or to not listen. Can you hear me? Killed it. I'm going to speak loudly. Daniel, can you hear me in the back? It's important to hear from our partners because I think as an educator, I have a lot of access to experts in English language arts and social studies and science, but unless I take time to interface with our partners in economic development, this is kind of a blind spot for us, just speaking personally. It's not for our CTE teachers here in the room. What's important is that we have a good read on high wage, high demand and a definition of that in Hillsboro, and then to understand how to support our teachers in creating those pathways. Our kids have just as much talent as kids from any other country or region, and our schools in Oregon aren't quite funded enough, in my opinion, although increasingly now with the Student Success Act. We can't do it alone as a K-12 organization to create all these pathways. We need to be interfacing with Genentech, PCC, OHSU, and in all these different areas. This summer, I was fortunate to bump into the economist for Washington County from the Oregon Employment Department right before she was going to go off to law school at Northwestern. They had given her 0 assignments for the summer. And I said, could we hang out? And she said, okay. And so I went to her with all the different CTE plans that we had. And I asked her to help us with an analysis of, in this area, where do we line up? Where do we have gaps? And what's the broad analysis of industry around here that we should be focusing on in terms of talent gap? Where do we have jobs that are going to sit open and we're going to import people from all over to take those jobs if we don't have our kids poised to go into them? She told me about a thing called location quotient. Can you say location quotient? Location quotient. This is a new term for me, LQ. I just throw it around now. LQ, for an English major, is the notion that your town or your region is either saturated with an industry like other towns and regions are, that you have less of that industry. Thank you very much, bro. That you have less of that industry than the norm, or that you have more. And if you have a high LQ in a certain area of the economy, then that's an advantage for your community. When I go to the advanced manufacturing work group, I sit at the table with reps from Applied Materials and Intel, but I also sit there with Toso Quartz, who blow glass to make the ovens that they cook the silicone in or something. And so what happens with LQ, and help me, I'm being laughed at by people who know more than I do right now, but that's normal. LQ means that we draw resources and we draw those spin-off partner industries and that help the bigger players. And that's an advantage for entrepreneurial activity. It's an advantage for students who get a wide variety of opportunities to work at a Metafab or an Acumed or a Toso Quartz, even though they might not have heard of that as they grow up through high school. So what's interesting about LQ, and if you look at it in Hillsboro, you can see how powerful the advanced manufacturing and tech sectors are. And these are just areas where you can see the employment level of Hillsboro. Again, Dan said 1 in 4 jobs are in the advanced manufacturing sector. And you can see the projected growth, which I think is important to aim our CTE programs and the skills kids are getting toward growth. But if you look deeper, and this is where it gets really nerdy, so bear with me. It says across occupations, the need for replacement workers due to retirement outpaces new growth openings. So essentially, if you look at the blue lines here, these are new openings. Despite big growth, projected growth in these key sectors, the replacement openings, because of baby boomers aging out and skilled workers who know how to blow glass to build the ovens for the silicon, they are retiring. And if we don't have the program that answers the question, whether that's a class or an internship about how do I learn to do that highly technical glass blowing, those jobs aren't going to sit open. And right now you can talk to the manufacturing sector folks and the HR departments. All of them are struggling to find folks from entry level to more advanced engineering. So you can look at the different sectors and see just how many new growth openings there are going to be, but then you stack on top of that just folks aging out of the workforce. And we really have a problem/opportunity on our hands to ensure that our kids have great jobs. And the jobs are not going to be few. There will be many. It's a question of training, I think. Also, the local supply of graduates may be insufficient to meet projected employment needs. So this stacks the projected annual openings and the folks who are coming out of local degree, certificate, and apprenticeship programs. And you can see a disparity that software developer and applications, you can see the openings. There are 2 or 3 times as many jobs as we have folks coming out of preparatory programs. Again, those could be an internship, apprenticeship, it could be a community college, mechatronics, and it could be a 4-year degree from PSU or OSU. Again, please hold in mind that I'm showing these as an example of one sector with a high LQ in Hillsboro, but this is the same conversation that we're hearing from OHSU, Tuolumne, Kaiser, Virginia Garcia. It's the same that we're having when we realize that we won't be able to recruit and hire as many teachers and counselors as we want to, just because the degree completion is being outpaced by the demand and the openings for jobs. Same deal, different bars. There are some industrial engineers where the projected openings are completely unanswered by the local degree completers. It's just absent. But we have the solutions. Beth Molenkamp is here from PCC and has been a support to us in figuring out, all right, how do we muddy the waters for kids? Creating clarity by muddying the waters first about what your trajectory should be through life and education after graduation. And this is an example of manufacturing tech roadmap. If you click on this on PCC's site, you can see what the courses would be at the time that you need to invest to accomplish what type of a certificate, and then how that would translate to a job. We're working really closely with folks in industry to figure out which of these, and PCC's a big part of their operation is to figure out the local demand and match that with programming. That's starting to be a K-12 consideration. You heard from Chris Barber earlier about aerospace. We're trying to get freshmen into the aerospace pipeline. Whether or not they learn to do rivets and they go into Toso Quartz or Metafab and cross industries, or whether they become a pilot, the question is training and confidence and leadership skills, believing in yourself and having those skills to succeed. So this is one roadmap. Here's one for solar voltaic manufacturing. They just learned how to cook things at a really high temperature using solar panels. Did you guys see that in the news? There's like a breakthrough happening right now in solar energy that could revolutionize the way we do manufacturing of steel and other difficult to cook product. So this is going to continue to be an area as we get into green energy. I think Hillsboro is ahead in this area, and students can access this if they have this information right there. So just for the sake of getting nerdy for 5 minutes, thanks for indulging Dan and me. This is, in the last 5 years, I would say that we have really come a long way in understanding the landscape here. I think we continue to struggle around communication, and one of our goals this year with our strategic plan and also with our Measure 98 dollars is communication with families. We're hearing from a bilingual community, largely an increasingly multilingual community, that despite the fact that these things are growing, we do not understand the landscape. And I hear that from teachers and counselors. I also hear that from parents and students, and that's our responsibility. So I'm going to kick to Brooke to talk a little bit about our strategic plan and how this all adds up at this point. Thank you, Brooke.
Thank you, thank you. You know what, you know something nerdy about me? This time I'm gonna start. I love that you have arrived Hillsboro signs with the population of Hillsboro. They just bring me such joy. The reason they bring me such joy is because I think, do people really understand the amazing community that they're arriving to? I don't know. But to me, what resonates with you have arrived are the dreamers and doers of Hillsboro. And I was turning to Mike and I was like, isn't it amazing that this many people show up to hear about the work that we're doing? But the reason that you show up is because you're invested in our community, and that is what just makes Hillsboro so awesome. So when I look at those signs, I always think, I'm like, if they only could see what I see when I get to have these events and I get to work with each of you in your own realms that help move this work forward. It is so amazing, and I have other districts and other communities that call to learn about what we're doing, and they hear about the work all over the state, which is also so crazy. But it's because you show up, and it is amazing. So I just want to start with that, and start with my little nerdy. I just get so excited about the population signs and how much I think about that. And I just want to thank you. So that was my start of it. The reason why also to start is we have created an amazing array of opportunities for students. And you'll see in the metrics that our internship rate now has gone up a lot, almost 200% in 6 years. So with that, it was time to think, okay, what are we going to do next? What do we really need to focus on? We have great communication tools. We have the right people in the room. How do we move forward? And so the next focus for us is really for our families, our students, and our staff to be able to clearly communicate all the opportunities that are happening inside our high schools, and then also in our community, to really understand what purposeful dual credit is, to understand how do you go from a middle school awesome CTE elective to the next step in your high school and beyond. So you'll see that is what we're focused on in this year. How do we communicate to all of our families, elementary, middle, and high? And I'm so excited because for the first time we have a strong showing of elementary principals here in the room, because we are really focused on that elementary component as well, really starting as early as pre-K all the way through graduation. So in that, we also know if we want all students and families to know about the awesome opportunities, we really need to circle back and know that our CTE students are reflecting our overall demographics in our Hillsboro School District. So how do we also ensure that students know that next step, maybe using a career ladder from Heartland Community College, really engaging in that purposeful dual credit and understanding that? Because if we have our students involved in the programs and they're participating, we also really want them to get to completion. And then also for our high school students to share that information down to middle school. And that's part of our after-school middle school programming that we're going to the third year about. The other piece is our demographics in career and tech ed really reflect our demographics in our school district. So in that, how do we also create communication tools that reflect our students, and then also for our families to be able to share that information and support their students along that journey as well. So you'll see in your packets, if you could pull the data piece. It's a real colorful document. I first want to start with celebrating. In 6 years, across all of our metrics, we have gone up. There's not one that we started with that we have not increased. Our lowest is at 17% of an increase of students accessing 2- and 4-year post-secondary opportunities and staying in that opportunity. And our highest, as I noted, are internships. And that is a huge community lift, and once again, thank you for that. That's incredible work to go from 349 internships that we started with now to 1,038 as of last year. So thank you for that. It's amazing. You'll see though also within our metrics, we have ebbed and flowed a bit. Our purposeful dual credit also then connects with the amount of our student savings. Our FAFSA submission has fluctuated. So we definitely over time are seeing an increase, and then some are more steady than not. The thing I wanted to give you time, because for some who have been here since the summit and now going to the steering committee, is to take some time at your tables to talk about what are some of the metrics that you would like us to start reporting on. So over 6 years, these have been our grounding focus that we continue to report back to you as stakeholders in the steering committee work. For us, we know going into next year, we are going to do student self-reported if they're going into an apprenticeship, trade, work, military, mission. We will start to share that information, but that is self-reported, and we haven't, all of these are not self-reported. These always come from like a national or a state data pool, but we think that's important to start to share that information with you as well. We also are able to share in a combined report the number of students who are completing their FAFSA ORSA. There's not a way to share just ORSA completion. We checked at the state and national level, but just to share that combined report with each of you as well. But what else as stakeholders would you like for us to start measuring as well? Because we've kind of, yay, hit a lot of our marks. So what else do we want to focus on? So I'm gonna give you 2-3 minutes at your tables to reflect, discuss that, and then we'll come back together.